He was supposed to marry her stepsister. But when the bride's mother heard the groom was broke and living in a cabin in the woods, she pulled her daughter out and forced her stepdaughter to take her place. The girl no one wanted. Elena walked down that aisle in a dress that didn't fit toward a stranger. But after the priest declared them married, the groom leaned into her ear and whispered, "Good thing they switched you. Now you're with me." The morning of the wedding arrived wrapped in silence and dread. Elena Rivers stood in front of the cracked mirror in her small attic bedroom, pressing her palms against fabric that didn't belong to her. It was ivory silk with delicate lace sleeves, hand-stitched for her stepsister Sophia 3 months ago. The dress fit Elena poorly, too tight across the shoulders, too loose at the waist, as though the fabric itself knew she was not the intended bride. Downstairs, she could hear her stepmother Margaret's voice cutting through the walls, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "This is the right decision," Margaret was saying into the phone, tone low and urgent. "I will not allow Sophia to marry a man who lives in a shack. He's bankrupt. He inherited nothing but trees and debt. No daughter of mine will suffer that fate." There was a pause. "Elena will do it. She owes this family everything." Elena closed her eyes. She had heard those words in different forms her entire life. She owed Margaret for the roof over her head. She owed Sophia for the hand-me-down clothes. She owed this family for not throwing her out when her father, James Rivers, died 10 years ago, leaving her orphaned at 18 with no money, no relatives, and no one who wanted her. Her biological mother, Isla, had died the night Elena was born. Her father had never spoken much about her, only that she was beautiful, wild, and that she had loved Elena with every breath of her short life. There were no photographs, no letters, only a single silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon that Elena wore every day, the metal warm against her skin, as though it carried its own quiet heartbeat. James had married Margaret when Elena was 6. For 7 years he'd been the barrier between Elena and the coldness of her new family. But when cancer took him, that barrier crumbled. Margaret had never hidden her preference for Sophia, her biological daughter. Where Sophia received piano lessons and silk dresses, Elena received chores and silence. And now, on the morning that should have been Sophia's wedding day, Elena was being sent to the altar in her place. "It's not a punishment," Margaret had told her last night. "You're 29 years old, Elena. No prospects, no career worth mentioning. This marriage will give you a home, even if it's a poor one. You should be grateful." Elena had wanted to scream. She'd been saving money from her job at the bookstore for 3 years. She had dreams of opening her own shop one day. But arguing with Margaret was like arguing with ice, so she'd agreed, not out of gratitude, but because something inside her whispered that she should. A strange warmth had spread through her chest when Margaret first mentioned the switch. A pull she didn't understand, as if some invisible thread was tugging her toward this unknown man in the forest. Now, standing in the dress that didn't fit, Elena pressed her hand against the crescent moon pendant and whispered to her mother, "I hope you're watching." The ceremony took place in the small chapel on the edge of town, where the paved road ended and the gravel began. Beyond the chapel, the forest stretched endlessly, a wall of pine and oak that seemed to breathe with life of its own. There were few guests. Margaret had kept the wedding quiet, not wanting anyone to notice the switch. Sophia sat in the back row, wearing oversized sunglasses, lips pressed into a thin line. She'd looked almost relieved when Margaret told her she wouldn't have, to marry the forest hermit. Elena kept her eyes forward, the veil obscuring her face, heart hammering so loudly she was certain the entire chapel could hear it. She didn't know what Rowan Ashford looked like. She'd never met him. The marriage had been arranged through old family connections, something about a debt James Rivers had owed Rowan's late father. Margaret had agreed when she believed the Ashford family still held wealth. When rumors of bankruptcy surfaced, she'd made her decision swiftly. The man waiting at the altar was tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair that fell in loose waves just past his ears. His jaw was sharp, shadowed with stubble, and his posture was perfectly still, like a predator at rest. His eyes were amber, deep and warm and flecked with gold, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath stutter. Something inside her stirred. That same warmth from last night, but stronger now, spreading from her chest to her fingertips. Her pendant felt hot against her collarbone. The ceremony was brief. Traditional vows, simple words. Elena's voice trembled when she said, "I do." Rowan's did not. His voice was deep and steady, like the low rumble of distant thunder. "You may kiss the bride." Rowan stepped forward. His hand rose slowly and lifted the veil from Elena's face with surprising gentleness. For a long moment he simply looked at her. His amber eyes traveled over every detail, the nervous flush on her cheeks, the way her lower lip trembled, the crescent moon pendant resting against her throat. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition. Satisfaction. A hunger so controlled it was almost invisible. But Elena felt it like heat from a fire. He leaned down. His lips brushed her cheek, barely a whisper of contact, but the warmth shot through her entire body. Then his mouth moved to her ear, and he spoke in a voice so low only she could hear. "Good thing your stepmother switched. You. Now you're with me." Elena's pulse surged to ice and fire simultaneously. She pulled back, staring at him with wide eyes. He knew. He'd known the entire time. The faint smile on his lips was not cruel. It was possessive, patient. The smile of a man who'd been waiting and had finally received exactly what he wanted. Before she could speak, his hand closed around hers, warm, firm, impossibly steady, and he was leading her down the aisle, past Margaret's tight smile, past Sophia's stunned expression, and out into the cold morning air where a black SUV idled at the curb. "Get in," he said. Not a command, an invitation wrapped in certainty. Elena looked back at the chapel, at the life she was leaving behind. Then she looked at the forest stretching beyond the road, vast and dark and alive. She got in. The drive lasted nearly an hour, and for most of it, neither of them spoke. The road narrowed as they climbed higher into the mountains, the trees growing thicker, pressing, closer, until it felt as though the forest was swallowing them whole. "You knew," Elena finally said, breaking the silence. "You knew Margaret switched us." "Yes." "How?" He glanced at her, and in the filtered light of the forest, his amber eyes seemed almost luminous. "I knew before the wedding. I knew the moment the arrangement was made." "Then why didn't you say anything? Why did you let it happen?" "Because you are the one I wanted." The words hit her like a wave, simple, direct, devoid of apology. "That doesn't make sense," Elena said. "You don't know me. We've never met." "I know more than you think," he said quietly. "And you'll understand soon." The trees parted suddenly, and Elena's breath caught. Before them stood a mansion, not a cabin, not a shack. A mansion of stone and dark timber that rose 3 stories high, with wide windows reflecting the forest like mirrors. The grounds were immaculate, gardens, stone pathways, a fountain gleaming in the late mornings, light. She stared, then turned to look at Rowan. "Margaret said you were bankrupt. She said you lived in a shack. People hear what they want to hear." He parked the car. "And I let them believe what serves me. You let her think you were poor." "I did." "Why?" He turned to face her fully. In the quiet of the car, his presence was overwhelming. "Because if your stepmother knew the truth, she would have sent Sophia down that aisle. And Sophia is not who I want." His gaze held hers, steady and burning. "You are." Elena's mouth opened, but no words came. This man had orchestrated everything. The rumors of poverty, the arrangement itself, all designed to ensure Margaret would make exactly the choice she made. "You played her," Elena whispered. "I gave her the rope. She chose to tie her own knot with it." He stepped out and came around to open her door. His hand extended toward her, palm up. The morning light caught the silver of a ring on his finger, a ring she hadn't noticed before. It bore the same crescent moon as her pendant, the same symbol, exactly the same. She stared at the ring, then at him. "Where did you get that?" "It's been in my family for generations," his voice softened. "Just as yours has been in yours." A chill ran down her spine. She took his hand and stepped out of the car. The moment their fingers touched, electricity surged again, stronger this time, racing up her arm and settling deep in her chest like a second heartbeat. Rowan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His amber eyes darkened for just a fraction before he composed himself. "Welcome home, Elena," he said. The front doors opened before they reached them, and a man stepped out. Tall, lean, with dark eyes that assessed Elena with rapid efficiency. "Nico," Rowan said without looking away from Elena. "This is my wife." Nico blinked once, then a slow, genuine smile spread across his face. "It's about time," he said. He gave Elena a slight bow. "Welcome. Mrs. Ashford, we've been expecting you." "You've been expecting me?" Elena repeated. Nico glanced at Rowan, who gave a barely perceptible nod. "For quite some time," Nico answered, and there was something in his voice. Reverence, perhaps, or wonder. Inside, the mansion was stunning. High ceilings with exposed beams, fireplaces large enough to stand in, bookshelves climbing to the ceiling. But it was the people that unsettled her. As Rowan led her through the house, they encountered others. A woman arranging flowers who stopped and stared. A man carrying firewood who nearly dropped it. A young girl polishing silver who gasped. Every single one looked at Elena with the same expression, recognition mixed with something close to awe. "Why are they looking at me like that?" Elena whispered. "Because they've been waiting for you." "You keep saying that. What does it mean?" He stopped and turned to face her. "It means," he said slowly, "that you are more important than you've ever been told, more powerful, more precious, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. No one had ever spoken to her like that. "You don't know me," she said again, but this time her voice cracked. "I know that you're brave," he said. "I know that you walked down that aisle this morning, even though you were terrified. I know that you've been treated like you're disposable your entire life, and you've never once believed it. Not deep down." He stepped closer. "I know you, Elena Rivers. Better than you think." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "How? How can you possibly know any of that?" His hand rose slowly, and his fingertips brushed the pendant at her throat. The touch was feather-light, but it sent a shockwave through her body. "Because your mother was someone extraordinary," he said. "And so are you." Before she could respond, a sound split the evening air outside, a howl, long and low, and resonant, rising from deep within the forest. It was followed by another, then another. A chorus of voices that should have been terrifying, but instead made Elena's pulse quicken with something dangerously close to longing. Rowan's eyes shifted for just a heartbeat. The amber flared brighter, almost luminous, and something behind his gaze moved, something wild, something barely contained. "What was that?" Elena breathed. "Family," he said. And the way he said it made Elena realize that whatever secrets this house held, it was something far bigger and far older than she could imagine. 3 days passed, and Elena found herself caught between suspicion and surrender. On the second morning, she found herself in the kitchen at 4 a.m., unable to sleep, making tea. She heard footsteps, and Rowan appeared, wearing a dark Henley and gray sweatpants, his dark hair disheveled from sleep. He looked less composed than usual, more human. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "I never sleep well in new places." "This is not a new place," he said simply, pouring himself water. "It's your place. It will just take time to feel like it." Despite herself, Elena smiled, small and reluctant, but real. When Rowan saw it, something in his expression shifted, softened. "Tell me about yourself," she said. "The real version." "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with why you live in the middle of a forest with staff that treat you like a king." "Perhaps because I am one," he said without arrogance, in a manner of speaking. "A king of what?" "Of the people who live in these woods. My family has protected this territory for generations." He paused. "The people you've met, Nico, the staff, they're not employees. They're family. My pack." "Your pack," Elena repeated. The word sounded strange and right simultaneously. "It means loyalty, protection, an unbreakable bond between those who choose to stand together," he said. "Like a family, but deeper." "That sounds beautiful." "It is, and it's also dangerous, because when you're bound to people that deeply, you'll do anything to protect them." She studied his face in the dim kitchen light. "Is that why you married me? To protect someone?" "I married you because from the first moment I learned of your existence, I knew you belonged here." His amber eyes held hers. "With me." "That first moment, when was it?" "The night I saw you in town. You were leaving the bookstore. It was raining. You stopped to help an elderly woman cross the street, holding your jacket over her head, even though you were getting soaked." His voice softened. "You laughed when she called you an angel, and something inside me that had been quiet for a very long time woke up and said, 'There she is, finally.'" Elena's eyes burned. She set down her tea because her hands were shaking. "Why didn't you just approach me?" "Because what I am, what my family is, it's not something you can explain over coffee. It requires trust, time, a foundation." His voice hardened. "And because your stepmother would never have allowed it. She would have kept you locked in that attic forever before she let you choose your own path. I refused to let that happen. So you arranged this instead." Pain flickered across his face. Real, unguarded pain. "I created a path for you to walk through. The choice to take it was always yours. You could have said no. You can leave right now if you want. The front door isn't locked. It never will be." The sincerity in his voice stripped away every defense Elena had built. "I don't want to leave," she whispered. "I don't understand any of this, and it terrifies me, but I don't want to leave." Rowan exhaled slowly, tension dissolving. He reached across the counter and placed his hand next to hers, not touching, just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Then stay," he said, "and I'll tell you everything when you're ready." She moved her fingers until they brushed his. The electricity was instant, searing, but this time neither pulled away. Outside in the forest that surrounded them, the wolves began to howl. And deep in Elena's chest, in a place she'd never known existed, something stirred, something ancient, something that had been sleeping for 29 years, something that was finally waking up. On the fourth morning, Elena's phone rang. Margaret's name lit up the screen. "Elena, we need to talk about your husband." "What about him?" "Sophia's friend drove past the Ashford property yesterday. She said the house is enormous. She said there were luxury cars. Is it true? Is he wealthy?" The audacity of it stole Elena's breath. "I've been thinking." Margaret's voice changed, becoming sweet and smooth. "This marriage was always meant for Sophia. The switch was a mistake. An annulment is simple at this stage. You've only been married 4 days. You want me to annul my marriage so Sophia can take my place. It's about what's right. Sophia was the intended bride. You were the substitute. Surely you understand that." Something hot and fierce rose in Elena's chest. For 29 years she'd swallowed these words. She'd nodded and complied, and made herself small. But standing in this mansion, wearing the crescent moon pendant, married to a man who'd moved heaven and earth to reach her, She was done being small. "No," Elena said. "Excuse me? No. I will not annul my marriage. I will not step aside for Sophia. And I will not apologize for finally having something that's mine. You ungrateful... I'm not ungrateful. I'm awake. For the first time in my life, someone chose me. Not as a backup plan. Not as a consolation prize. Me. And I will not let you take that away. This isn't over, Elena. Yes, it is." She hung up. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. And tears were streaming down her face. But she felt more alive than she had in years. That was brave. She spun, around. Rowan stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed. His eyes burned with something fierce. "You heard all of that?" she asked, wiping her cheeks. "Every word." "How?" "You were across the house." He hesitated. "I have very good hearing." "She'll come here," Elena said. "She'll bring Sophia, and she'll try to convince you that you married the wrong sister. Let her come." He walked toward Elena with slow, deliberate steps. He stopped when he was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "I'll say this once, and I'll say it to anyone who needs to hear it." He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You are my wife, Elena. Not a replacement, not a substitute. You're my partner, and anyone who tries to take you from me will learn very quickly why that is a mistake." The word settled into her bones. "Why me?" she asked. The question held everything. Every year of being overlooked, every moment of being told she was less than. "Because you're the only one," he said. "There has never been anyone else. There will never be anyone else. I knew it the moment I saw you, and every moment since has only confirmed it." She wanted to kiss him. The realization hit her with startling force. But she didn't. Not yet, because there were still too many questions. "Then earn it," she said softly. "Show me who you really are." Something wild flashed behind his eyes, something not quite human. "Soon," he promised. "Very soon." Margaret arrived on Tuesday, exactly 1 week after the wedding. She came in a hired car with Sophia, both dressed as though attending a royal reception. Elena watched from the second-floor window. Rowan was beside her instantly. She hadn't heard him approach, which happened often now. "They're here," she said unnecessarily. "I know." His hand found the small of her back. "Do you want to see them?" "No, but I need to." "You don't need to do anything. Say the word, and Nico will turn them away." She shook her head. "If I hide from her now, I'll be hiding from her forever. Then we face it together." They met Margaret and Sophia in the main sitting room. Rowan stood slightly behind Elena, and to her right, close enough that his presence was unmistakable, far enough that the space was clearly hers to command. Margaret's eyes swept the room with barely concealed greed. "Rowan," Margaret began, voice dripping with warmth. "What a magnificent home. I had no idea." "They weren't rumors," Rowan said evenly. "They were stories I allowed to circulate. There's a difference." Margaret's smile faltered before she recovered. "There's been a terrible mistake. The original arrangement was for my daughter Sophia to marry you. In a moment of poor judgment, I allowed the switch. Elena is sweet, but she's not what you deserve." "And what do I deserve?" Rowan asked, voice calm, but Elena could feel the tension radiating from him like heat from a furnace. Margaret guided Sophia forward. "Someone of quality, of breeding. Someone who can stand beside you as an equal." The silence that followed was devastating. Rowan let it stretch until Margaret's smile began to waver. Then he spoke, and his voice carried an authority Elena had never heard from any man. "I want to make something absolutely clear, Mrs. Morgan. So clear there will never be any confusion again." He stepped forward, and something in the way he moved made Margaret take an involuntary step back. "Elena is my wife. She's not a placeholder. She's not a mistake. She's the woman I chose, the only woman I will ever choose. He turned to Sophia. Sophia, you seem like a perfectly pleasant young woman, but I feel nothing for you. Not a spark, not a pull, not a whisper. When I look at Elena, his voice changed, deepened. When I look at Elena, I feel everything, and no amount of manipulation or scheming will change that. Sophia's perfect composure cracked. Her lower lip trembled. Margaret gathered herself. This isn't over. Rowan's amber eyes hardened. Touch her, threaten her, come near her with anything less than genuine kindness, and you will discover exactly what I'm capable of. That's not a threat. It's a promise from a man who keeps every single one. Margaret grabbed Sophia's arm and left without another word. When the door closed, Elena stood completely still, every nerve vibrating. Then slowly she turned to Rowan. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. She's going to retaliate. Elena. He took her face in both hands. I told you anyone who tries to take you from me will learn why that's a mistake. I meant it. Not because you're a possession, but because you deserve to be protected. You deserve to be chosen. And I will spend every day proving that to you until you believe it. A sob broke from her chest before she could stop it. All the years of silence, of invisibility, came crashing over her in a wave so powerful she thought it might drown her. Rowan didn't flinch. He pulled her gently against his chest and wrapped his arms around her. She pressed her face into his shirt and cried, ugly and unrestrained, and he held her through every second of it, one hand cradling the back of her head, his lips pressed against her hair. I have you, he murmured. No one will hurt you again. I have you. And for the first time in her life, Elena believed it. The dreams began on the 10th night. In the first dream, she was running through the forest with speed and grace her body had never possessed. Her feet were bare, but she felt no pain. She felt powerful. She felt free. The second dream came the following night. She was standing in a meadow under a full moon so bright it turned the world silver. A woman stood before her, beautiful and wild, with hair that moved as though blown by wind that touched nothing else. Her eyes were golden, the same amber that burned in Rowan's gaze. She reached for Elena and said a single word. Remember. Elena woke with tears on her face and the name Isla on her lips. She found Rowan in the library the next morning. I need to talk to you, Elena said. I've been having dreams. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise, anticipation. Tell me. She described them, the running, the howling, the woman in the meadow. Rowan listened without interrupting, and when she finished, the silence was thick with significance. The woman in your dream, he said slowly. Did she have your eyes? Yes, my eyes, but golden like yours. Rowan set down his book. He leaned forward. Your mother, Isla, was not an ordinary woman. She was one of us. One of us, Elena repeated. There are people in this world who carry something ancient in their heritage, he said. Something that connects them to the earth, to the moon, to instincts that civilization taught the rest of humanity to forget. We call ourselves many things, but the old word is wolf-born. The fire crackled. Elena's heart beat so loudly she was certain he could hear it. You're telling me my mother was a werewolf. I'm telling you that your mother carried the heritage of the oldest wolf-born line in North America, the Crescent Line, named for the mark they bear. His eyes dropped to her pendant. And so do you. That's impossible. Is it? He stood and moved to the window. Think about it. The dreams, the way your skin reacts when we touch, the howling that doesn't frighten you but calls to you. Every word was a key turning in a lock she hadn't known existed. Your mother died the night you were born, Rowan continued. She used the last of her strength to bring you into this world, and to suppress the wolf inside you, binding it so deeply it wouldn't manifest until you were ready, until you were safe. until you found your way home." "Home," Elena whispered. He turned to face her. "Here, with me, with the pack. This was always where you were meant to be. And you? How do you fit into this?" He crossed the room and knelt before her. Such a surprising gesture from a man who carried himself like royalty that Elena's breath caught. He took her hands in his. "In our world, there's a bond that transcends choice, transcends logic. It's called a mate bond. The recognition of your soul's counterpart, the one person in all the world who was made for you and you for them." He pressed her hands to his chest over his heart. "I felt it the first time I saw you. A pull so powerful it nearly brought me to my knees. Every instinct I possess pointed to you and said, 'She is the one.'" Tears blurred Elena's vision. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because you needed to trust me first. Because this truth spoken too soon would have driven you away." She looked at him, really looked at the man kneeling before her with his heart laid bare. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "So am I," he smiled. "Terrified because losing you would destroy me. But I'd rather live in that fear than live a single day without you." Elena leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. They breathed together in the quiet of the library. "Show me," she said. "Show me what you are." Rowan stood slowly. He stepped back, creating space. His expression became focused, concentrated. The change began in his eyes, the amber flaring bright, filling the iris entirely. Then his posture shifted, his shoulders broadening with power that was not human. The air around him seemed to vibrate, and then between one breath and the next, where a man had stood, there was a wolf. He was enormous. Coal black fur that absorbed the firelight. Muscles coiled beneath the sleek coat. Amber eyes that burned with intelligence, with love, with devotion so fierce it made Elena's soul tremble. He was beautiful. He was terrifying. He was the most magnificent thing she'd ever seen. Elena didn't scream. She didn't run. She sat perfectly still, tears streaming down her face, and she understood. Every strange moment, every impossible coincidence, it all made sense. The wolf lowered his massive head and pressed his muzzle gently against her hand. His fur was impossibly soft, his breath warm against her skin. "I see you," Elena whispered, running her fingers through his fur. "I see all of you, and I'm not afraid." The wolf closed his amber eyes, and Elena felt something through the contact, a pulse of emotion so deep and vast it had no name. When he shifted back, kneeling before her once more in human form, his eyes were wet. "No one has ever said that to me," he said, voice rough. "No one has ever seen the wolf and stayed." Elena cupped his face in her hands. "Then everyone before me was foolish. Because you're extraordinary, Rowan Ashford. All of you." He turned his head and pressed a kiss to her palm. The electricity between them blazed, but this time it wasn't startling. It was warm. It was right. It was the feeling of two halves of a whole recognizing each other. The full moon arrived 2 weeks later, and with it, something inside Elena began to break open. It started at dusk, a tingling in her fingertips that spread to her wrists, her arms, her shoulders. A heat building at the base of her spine that pulsed with each heartbeat. Her senses sharpened until the world became painfully vivid. She found Rowan on the back porch, staring at the moon as it rose above the tree line, full and heavy and luminous. He turned when he heard her, expression equal parts wonder and concern. "It's happening," he said. Not a question. "Something's happening." Her voice trembled. Her hands were shaking. "Rowan, I'm scared." He was at her side in an instant, arms around her, forehead pressed to hers. "Listen to me. What you're feeling is the awakening. The bond your mother placed on you is dissolving. Your wolf is coming home." "It hurts." "I know, but the pain isn't the wolf. The pain is the resistance. Your body has spent 29 years holding something back. Letting go will feel like breaking. But I promise you, you're not breaking. You're becoming. A wave of heat crashed through her, and she cried out. Her bones ached, her skin burned. The pendant at her throat blazed with light, silver and blinding. Don't fight it, Rowan murmured against her hair. Let it come. I'm right here. I won't let you fall. She closed her eyes and surrendered. The transformation was not violent. It was a release, like exhaling a breath she'd been holding her entire life. Her body shifted, reformed, and when she opened her eyes, the world had changed. Colors were richer. Sounds were symphonic. Every scent told a story. She looked down and saw paws, white as fresh snow, delicate but powerful. She turned her head and caught her reflection in the glass door. A white wolf stared back at her, smaller than Rowan's form, but radiating light as though moonlight lived inside her fur. Her eyes were golden now, bright and blazing. The pack emerged from the forest, dozens of wolves of every size and color, padding silently from between the trees, forming a circle. One by one they lowered their heads, not in submission, in recognition, in welcome. Nico's voice carried across the night. The crescent luna has returned. After 3 generations, the white wolf walks among us again. Rowan shifted beside her, his black wolf pressed against her white one, and through the contact, Elena felt the mate, bond fully ignite. It was not electricity. It was a universe. Every emotion he'd ever felt for her poured through the bond in a torrent of light and warmth and unconditional love. And she sent hers back. They howled together, his voice deep and commanding, hers high and clear and new. The pack joined them, and the sound that rose into the night sky was not just a howl. It was a declaration, a homecoming, a promise. Later, when they'd both shifted back and sat, wrapped in blankets on the porch, watching the moon trace its arc across the sky, Elena leaned her head against Rowan's shoulder. My whole life, I felt like something was missing, she said. Like there was a hole in me that nothing could fill. I thought it was my mother. I thought it was belonging. I thought it was love. She looked up at him. It was all of those things. And it was this. It was the wolf. It was you. It was everything I'm finally allowed to be. He kissed her forehead, long and slow and reverent. You were never less than whole. You were just waiting for the world to catch up to who you already were. 3 weeks later, Margaret's scheme unraveled when she hired men who turned out to be investigators looking for wolf-born communities. Rowan, Nico, and Elena worked together to expose the truth. Bank records, phone calls, everything delivered to authorities. But Elena did something more. She called Sophia. You need to know what your mother has done, Elena said. She hired dangerous people, people who could hurt someone. There was a long silence. Then Sophia's voice, smaller than Elena had ever heard it. I know. I found the documents. I've been trying to convince her to stop, but she won't listen. This needs to end. Not for me. For her. For both of you. What do you need me to do? Tell the truth. For once, we need to be honest with each other. Sophia did. She went to authorities with documents, with testimony. It was the bravest thing Sophia had ever done. The hunters were intercepted before they reached the property. Margaret faced charges. In the aftermath, Sophia called Elena one more time. I'm sorry, she said, voice cracking. For all of it. For every year I watched her treat you like you didn't matter and said nothing. Elena stood on the porch, the forest stretching endlessly before her, her husband's warmth at her back, the moon rising above the trees. I forgive you, Elena said, and she meant it. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve the freedom of letting it go. Rowan found her in the meadow on a clear December night, the sky blazing with stars. She was sitting in the grass, face tilted toward the sky. The crescent moon pendant caught the starlight and glowed. He sat beside her without speaking. "I've been thinking about my mother," Elena said. "Tell me." "She gave up everything to protect me. She suppressed the wolf inside me, knowing she wouldn't survive. She chose my safety over her own life." Her voice thickened. "She chose this path for me. The pendant, the bond, the connection to this territory. She knew I'd end up here, even if she couldn't be here to see it." "She was extraordinary," Rowan said. "The elders still speak of her. Isla Crescent, the last white wolf before you." He pressed the pendant to her lips. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered to the stars. Rowan reached over and took her hand. "I want to do something, if you'll allow it." "What?" "I want to renew our vows. Not in a chapel with strangers watching. Here, under the stars, with the pack as witness. The way our people have done it for centuries." Elena looked at him. "You want to marry me again?" "I want to marry you properly. The first time was a transaction. This time, it will be a choice. Your choice, made freely." "Yes," she said without hesitation. 1,000 times. Yes. The ceremony took place 3 nights later on the winter solstice under a full moon. The meadow had been transformed. Torches lined a natural aisle between the trees. The pack stood in a wide circle, some in human form, some in wolf, all silent and reverent. Snow had begun to fall, soft and gentle. Elena walked the aisle alone. She wore a simple white dress, the crescent moon pendant at her throat, her feet bare against the cold earth. Rowan waited at the center of the circle, wearing a simple dark shirt, his dark hair loose, his amber eyes fixed on her with naked devotion. Old Henrik presided. "Under the witness of the moon and the stars, we gather to celebrate the union of Alpha and Luna. This is not a beginning, for their bond was written before either drew breath. This is an acknowledgement." Rowan took Elena's hands. "I, Rowan Ashford, Alpha of the Crescent Territory, choose you, Elena Rivers, as my mate, my partner, my equal. Not because fate demanded it, but because my heart recognized yours. I vow to protect you, not by caging you, but by standing beside you. To love you, not by possessing you, but by freeing you to be everything you are." He paused. "You're not mine, because I claimed you. You're mine because you chose to stay." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "I, Elena Rivers, daughter of Isla and James, Luna of the Crescent Pack, choose you, Rowan Ashford, as my mate, my partner, my home. You found me when I was invisible and made me seen. You chose me when the world said I wasn't enough. I vow to stand beside you in every storm, to love you with the fierce love of the wolf and the tender love of the woman." Henrik smiled. "By the light of the moon and the bond of the wolf, you are united." Rowan pulled Elena close and kissed her. The pack erupted, howls rising into the sky, a chorus of joy that echoed through the forest. Snow fell harder, swirling around them like a blessing. When they broke apart, Rowan pressed his forehead to hers. "They tried to throw you away," he whispered, "but the moon brought you straight to me." "And I would walk that path again," she said through her tears. "Every painful step, because they all led here. They all led to you." Around them the pack shifted. Wolves raised their muzzles to the sky and sang. Elena felt the pull and let it take her. She shifted, her white wolf emerging in a cascade of silver light, and Rowan shifted beside her, his black wolf pressing against her side. They stood together at the center of their pack, Shadow and Moonlight, Alpha and Luna. And then they ran through the snow-covered forest under the blazing moon, surrounded by the pack that loved them. They ran not from anything, not toward anything. Simply together, simply free, simply, finally, completely home.